Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a massive stack of source material, a really detailed personal assessment, and we're going to try and transform it into actionable insight.
Yeah, this is a big one.
It is. We're moving past the usual external market data and really diving deep into your core motivators, your emotional blueprint, and all those hidden forces that shape your choices in life, career, and of course, commitment.
And a specific deep dive is all about the Purpose Readiness Index. It's an exhaustive report that's generated as part of a pre-marriage preparation test.
A pre-marriage test, that's a huge undertaking.
It is. And the report itself, it kind of frames this whole assessment as an investment in your future, which I think is a great way to put it. The whole goal is finding that profound place where hearts and minds align.
Hearts and minds align. That is a phenomenal goal. So our mission for you today is to provide a page-by-page breakdown, a real roadmap, actually, to help you interpret your own results all the way up to page 13 of this really comprehensive report.
Right. The whole idea is for you to gain absolute clarity and fulfillment, not just in one area, but across every facet of your life.
And the core foundation of this entire analysis, it seems to lie in what the authors call the 7 drivers.
The 7 drivers. They're absolutely essential. They aim to reveal the strength of your internal psychological forces. So we're talking about the deep-seated values that underpin, well, every action you take.
Every decision you make.
Every person you are naturally drawn to. It's a really fundamental look at human motivation.
You know, I find the philosophical root of this assessment particularly compelling. It's not just some modern online quiz, is it?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. This index is deeply rooted in timeless psychological wisdom. We're talking about thinkers like Spranger and Allport. But, and this is the key part, it's been specifically adapted and applied to modern relational dynamics through what's called the Bandon perspective.
Okay, so Bandon. Tell us a bit more about that.
So this highly specialized work is conducted under the umbrella of the IKSC Knowledge Bridge, Swayam-Yog. And that's where Dr. Atul B. Patil conducts these really important pre-marriage preparation assessments.
So he's the expert behind this.
He is. And the effort being made here by IKSC, it's focused squarely on helping young candidates, just like you, discover your true self. And ultimately, to find a life partner through these unique self-aware insights, it's a really noble effort.
It really is. Okay, let's jump right into the immediate snapshot, which you find right there on page 1. I mean, this report doesn't waste any time, does it? It launches you straight into the highlights.
It doesn't. And that's your executive summary right there. The highlights section gives you a super compact 40-word expression of your workplace personality.
40 words, that's it.
That's it. And it's derived entirely from the unique pattern of your top 3 or 4 core motivators. It's meant to be the absolute fastest way for you to articulate your professional orientation.
You could almost think of it as your motivational signature then. But what really catches my eye immediately are the dial gauges. They're presented right alongside that summary, and they offer this really powerful visual comparison.
They do, don't they? The dial gauges present 2 key things: your self-profile and then the ideal partner profile.
And that's based on qualities you prioritize.
Right, even if you do it subconsciously.
Yeah.
And the critical piece of information here is the angle between the 2. This angle is what the report defines as your relational comfort zone.
Okay, I have to stop you there. We talk about compatibility all the time, right? But the idea that you can define it visually with an angle, that's so practical. So what does a large angle versus a small angle actually indicate in a real relationship context?
That's a great question, and it really moves us beyond just, a simple description. So a very small angle suggests a high degree of similarity. You and your partner are motivated by extremely similar forces.
Which sounds like the dream, right?
It can be. It can mean instant rapport, shared goals, you finish each other's sentences, but it can also lead to blind spots. If you're both weak in the same area, who's going to pick up the slack?
Ah, I see. So you might fail to naturally provide what the other is missing.
Exactly. Now, a large angle, on the other hand, suggests significant motivational divergence. Now, while this might sound like a recipe for friction, it also pretty much guarantees complementarity.
Complementarity, meaning you balance each other out.
Precisely. For instance, you might have one person who provides the ambition, that's the economic driver, and the other provides the stability and structure, which is the regulatory driver. They're different, but they work together.
So the ideal comfort zone angle, then, it isn't 0.
Usually not, no.
Yeah.
It's a manageable distance, one that allows for both understanding and growth. It's the metric that suggests, are your hearts and minds aligned enough to travel down the same path, even if you're walking in slightly different lanes?
That makes so much sense. Okay, so we've established that initial snapshot. Now let's move into the foundational map. We need the deeper context to truly interpret this information. Instead of just saying page 3, let's really talk about the report's true purpose, which you framed as viewing it as a mirror and a compass.
That analogy, I think it just perfectly captures the spirit of this section. The report clarifies that this is, at its heart, a personal guide. It's designed to help you understand the invisible forces driving your choices and your behaviors.
Especially when it comes to the big stuff.
Especially the big stuff. Long-term relationships, shared financial decisions, life goals. It's basically an instruction manual for how you operate under pressure.
And the crucial mindset here, which the report really emphasizes, is so key for anyone listening. This has to be viewed as a mirror for self-awareness and a compass for relationship readiness. It's never a judgment or a label.
Never. There are no good or bad scores. There are no aspirational scores. There is only your reality. That's it.
We are looking at deeply rooted inner values. So your choices in life, love, career, they're not random.
Not at all. They are fundamentally guided by the hierarchy of these core motivators. If you feel compelled to take control of a situation, that's your political driver at work. If you feel this need to learn something new before you act on it,
that's your theoretical driver.
That's your theoretical driver. It's that predictable.
So to start navigating this report effectively, where do you begin? It seems like you need to start with the big picture.
You do. You start with the motivation graph. This graph gives you an immediate visual overview of your entire emotional landscape. It's all right there.
So the first step for any candidate for you is personal reflection.
Absolutely. You need to look at it and ask, which motivations jump out as the strongest? And maybe more subtly, which scores are quieter but still hold a deep meaning for you, especially in the context of what you want in a relationship. You have to internalize the shape of your own graph.
And I appreciate that the report doesn't just give you a number and leave you hanging. It provides incredibly detailed analysis. We're talking about 6 major categories that explore each driver in depth.
Yes, for each of the 7 drivers, you get general characteristics, general traits, key strengths, motivational insights, your specific training and learning style, and even continual improvement opportunities.
That breadth is what makes it so useful. It's not just a compatibility score. It's a career development tool and a personal growth resource all wrapped into one.
It really is. Knowing your preferred training learning style based on your theoretical driver, for example, that's just as useful for your professional life as it is for, say, communicating how to assemble a piece of furniture with your partner.
Okay, now, a point of natural skepticism. If these are drivers, are they set in stone? Do they ever change? Or are we just stuck with what we've got?
That's a fair question, and the report wisely addresses this. It treats the results as a living document. So while your core tendency is generally stable, your motivators are not necessarily fixed for life.
So they can evolve.
They evolve. As you gain maturity, you change careers, you enter a long-term commitment, your priorities shift. And as they shift, your drivers can be consciously or subconsciously recalibrated.
Okay, so if I spend 5 years building a startup, my economic driver might just spike through the roof.
It probably would. And your altruistic driver, the one focused on helping others, might temporarily dip because of the intense focus required.
So the report reflects where you are now, and that allows you to ask, do my top motivators today align with the priorities I want for my future marriage?
Precisely. That shift in priority is a conscious trade-off that the data reveals. And that brings us perfectly to the formal introduction of the 7 life and relationship drivers on the next page.
These are the core forces, the 7 band fan drivers.
Right, and they dictate how you express love, how you lead a family, how you offer support, and how you respond during those really critical emotional moments. This is the heart of it.
Let's break down the meaning behind each of these 7 deeply meaningful values. First up, the desire for personal freedom.
That's the individualistic driver.
Okay. Then the pursuit of purpose, knowledge, and truth.
That's theoretical.
The need for harmony, beauty, and emotional balance.
Aesthetic. That one's pretty intuitive.
It is. The drive for success, efficiency, and return on investment.
Pure economic.
Right. The focus on service, helping others, and selfless contribution.
That's your altruistic driver.
And then the requirement for structure, rules, and order.
Regulatory.
Yeah.
A big one for a lot of people.
I can imagine. And finally, the desire for influence, power, and leadership.
And that's the political driver.
Got it. So the intensity of your score for each of those 7 drivers, that's what's paramount here.
It's everything. A high score means that value strongly, and I mean strongly, influences your behavior and your choices. It literally forms your comfort zone. If you have a high score in the regulatory driver, you are just deeply comfortable with a structured, predictable life.
So then what does a low score indicate? Does it mean the value is just unimportant to you?
Not necessarily unimportant, but rather deprioritized. That's the key word. It means you won't naturally allocate energy toward that value unless you're forced to by external circumstances.
And that is the crucial insight for a long-term relationship.
It is. Because in life and in marriage, we are constantly making trade-offs. This report is essentially a blueprint. It shows you where you are psychologically prepared to trade or compromise, and maybe more importantly, where you absolutely are not.
Let's focus on the dynamic interaction of these drivers, because they don't operate in silos, do they? They blend, or I imagine more often they clash.
They often clash, yes.
Yeah.
And that creates these internal conflicts that then manifest externally in a relationship.
So give us a classic conflict scenario.
Okay, a classic one is the pairing of a high economic driver and a low altruistic driver in the same person. The high economic focus drives you toward measurable results, financial efficiency, getting things done.
Right, and the low altruistic score.
It means that a selfless focus on others' emotional needs or just helping for the sake of helping often takes a back seat. It's not the priority.
I can see exactly how that plays out. In a partnership, the high economic person might get really impatient with a partner who prioritizes, say, spending 2 hours providing emotional support for a friend over finishing a shared household project.
Exactly. And the conflict isn't really about the project itself.
No, it's about a clash between the efficiency driver and the service driver.
You got it. Understanding these interactions clarifies why certain relationship dynamics feel inherently fulfilling. It's because the drivers are supporting each other. And it also explains why others feel constantly draining or stressful. It's because the drivers are in competition.
So the overall goal of this foundational section is simple then. It's about revealing the intensity and the hierarchy of your drivers so that you can move beyond just a superficial connection.
Yes, so that you can make truly conscious, meaningful decisions as a couple, armed with real self-knowledge. That's the power of this.
Okay, now we can transition from that high-level overview to the specifics. Let's look at the 7 workplace drivers detailed on page 5, and then see how that relates to your core relational identity.
Right, so page 5 provides that key visual representation. You'll see those colored bars for your self-profile. The length of the bar is absolutely crucial here.
So the higher the motivator score,
the stronger the intrinsic drive, and consequently, the larger the comfort zone you possess in that area. This page is really all about definition and scale.
the source material here is incredibly dense. I mean, for each of the 7 drivers, aesthetic, economic, individualistic, and so on, the report provides these detailed characteristics based on your score. It includes general traits, key strengths, key weaknesses, and even your emotional needs.
It does. And we should probably focus on the relational implications of those strengths and weaknesses.
I agree. Let's take a high-scoring political driver. So this is someone driven by influence, control, and leadership. Their key strengths might include, decisiveness, the ability to rally people toward a goal.
Absolutely. They're the natural leader in the room. But, and here's the other side of the coin, their key weakness might be a tendency toward micromanagement or a real resistance to relinquishing control.
And if you bring that weakness into a shared household, you can see immediate friction. The high political person might decide where every single item in the kitchen goes, driven by that intrinsic need for structure and influence.
Which can make the partner feel like their opinion doesn't matter, like they have no say in their own home.
So that intentional communication and compromise is key. I mean, knowing your key weaknesses related to your dominant drivers is maybe the most valuable insight here.
I think it is. Because these are the traits that are going to require the most effort, the most maturity, and the most self-awareness to navigate successfully in a marriage.
Okay, let's move to page 6, where the report pivots. It goes to the 7 life drivers' general characteristics, Ban-Van perspective. It's the same data, but it's interpreted through a deeper, more relationship-focused lens. The report calls this your emotional DNA.
And this is where the rubber really meets the road. These drivers don't just affect how you lead a meeting at work, they power your day-to-day decisions, your emotional temperature, and your long-term aspirations within a committed relationship.
The report promises some pretty significant benefits when your daily choices, your relationship dynamics, and your shared goals all align with these core drivers. Can you tell us more about what that alignment actually feels like for a person?
It feels like flow. It feels like peace, honestly. It translates into greater emotional harmony, a sharp reduction in what we call relationship fatigue.
Relationship fatigue, that burnout that comes from constantly fighting your own nature.
That's it, exactly. It also leads to a stronger sense of commitment and this powerful feeling of shared purpose. When you aren't constantly fighting your own blueprint, the connection just naturally strengthens.
I think we need a concrete contrast here to really drive this home. What does misalignment look like?
Misalignment looks like constant emotional debt. It's exhausting. For instance, let's say you have a very high aesthetic driver, so you crave beauty, balance, and harmony. But your partner constantly brings chaos, is emotionally demanding, or insists on living in a cluttered, disorganized environment.
Oh, that sounds stressful just thinking about it.
It is. And even if you love them deeply, that fundamental mismatch in core values will lead to chronic, low-level stress and profound fatigue. You're always swimming upstream against your own nature.
So this section then isn't just about predicting conflict. It's about proactively building mutual understanding and actually celebrating each other's inherent strengths.
Yes. It reinforces that these different drivers are simply different ways of valuing the world. One isn't better than the other, they're just different.
And to make this tangible for you, the listener, based on your individual scores, the report provides 5 key points of general characteristics for each of the 7 drivers right on this page.
And these are immediate, actionable insights. 5 clear statements telling you precisely what your aesthetic value is, what your economic value is, and so on, all framed specifically for life and commitment. That is the true emotional DNA mapping.
Left from the page, figuratively, to a less comfortable but I think entirely necessary discussion. Friction. Page 7 is titled, Life Isn't Always Good. Good. And that's okay. It dives right into the hidden forces that shape your negative reactions.
And friction is just inevitable in any close relationship. It's a given. But maturity isn't about avoiding friction. It's about understanding its source.
And the report pinpoints that source. It says that irritation, emotional discomfort, or that feeling of restlessness, it often stems directly from the intensity of your internal motivators when they are unmet or challenged.
That is such a crucial point. It means we aren't talking about character flaws here. We're talking about sensitivity points. This section is designed to help you understand what irritates or discomforts you specifically because it violates your core values.
So can you walk us through the mechanism? How does that work?
Well, think about it. Your strongest drivers are literally what you care about the most. They define your expectations of the world and of other people. So if a partner consistently ignores, dismisses, or misaligns with that dominant value,
You don't just get annoyed.
no, you feel fundamentally judged, you feel misunderstood or emotionally off balance, it can feel like a direct violation of your reality.
Let's expand on the specific examples that the source material provides, because this is where the theory becomes so deeply relatable for people.
Okay, let's take the high regulatory individual. Their core driver is structure, rules, order. So if their partner is constantly changing plans at the last minute or fails to stick to household agreements.
Like who takes out the trash on Tuesdays?
Exactly. That high regulatory person may not just feel inconvenienced. They may feel profoundly unsafe or disrespected. They might view that spontaneity not as fun, but as a lack of consideration for the order they need to feel calm.
I can relate that to a really simple scenario. The regulatory spouse makes a detailed spreadsheet for the monthly budget. The aesthetic spouse, who's driven by experiences and harmony, spontaneously buys an expensive piece of art because it just felt right.
A classic conflict.
And the regulatory person isn't just mad about the money, they're mad about the violation of the structure they rely on for their sense of safety.
Precisely. Now, let's consider the high aesthetic focus. These individuals crave harmony, a calm environment, and emotional depth. They may feel actively drained or stressed in chaotic, loud, or emotionally harsh environments.
So if their partner frequently engages in aggressive arguments or is dismissive of their emotional needs,
The aesthetic person is suffering a direct violation of their core driver, and that's going to lead to withdrawal or deep emotional distress. They're literally having a physiological reaction to the lack of harmony.
And what about the high economic motivator? The person focused on efficiency, results, and resource optimization.
They are likely to become deeply, deeply frustrated by indecisiveness, procrastination, or any perceived waste of time, money, or energy.
And their frustration isn't malicious.
No, it's rooted in their driver. A high economic person sees inefficiency as a direct threat to stability and progress. So a partner who takes months to make a simple decision about, say, which car to buy, that triggers massive friction because it violates the economic need for swift, profitable action.
The report summarizes this so beautifully in the executive summary on this page. It says, these drivers power your fundamental reactions, your decisions, and your relationship style.
And the strength of each driver influences what makes you feel safe, what you must avoid, and critically, how you respond when you are under emotional stress.
So the overarching goal then is to equip you with true emotional intelligence.
Yes. By understanding the relative strength and order of your abandoned life drivers and your partners, you can anticipate these emotional mismatches. And instead of reacting with immediate frustration, you can learn to respond with maturity and with empathy.
And the report makes this really actionable. Based on your score, it prints a typical conflict or stress point, a friction point, for all 7 drivers.
So you get 7 customized warnings, 7 little red flags about what will specifically make you stressed out.
Which means you can actually go to your partner and say, hey, when you do X, my regulatory driver feels threatened and I need Y to feel safe again. It totally transforms conflict into communication.
It's the difference between fighting and problem solving. It's huge.
Okay, we now move into the advanced synthesis section, starting on page 9. Ratio analysis. This is where the assessment moves beyond just looking at single scores and starts mapping your internal contradictions. This is understanding the push and pull within you.
I love this section. Single scores give us the volume of a driver. Ratio analysis gives us the tension between them. We're looking at how 2 different drivers interact and often compete inside your own decision-making process.
So this is where you get clarity between your heart and your mind.
The ultimate clarity, yes.
Yeah. Because for many of our listeners, the core conflict is often internal, isn't it? The pursuit of ambitious career goals, which might require immense focus and drive. That's your economic, political, theoretical drivers.
Right.
Versus the deep search for a stable, fulfilling life partner, which might draw on your altruistic, aesthetic, or even your individualistic need for freedom. The ratios show which force usually wins that internal battle.
Precisely. The report breaks it down into 4 ways that ratio analysis can help you on this pre-marriage journey.
Okay, let's go through them. First up, gaining clarity between heart and mind.
So, if you're internally torn, let's say, between the individualistic need for complete personal autonomy and the altruistic compulsion to sacrifice for a partner's happiness, your ratio shows which driver is stronger.
So that ratio predicts your decision-making hierarchy. Are you fundamentally driven by self-interest or by service to others?
Exactly. It quantifies that internal tug of war.
Okay, the second way it helps is by understanding relationship conflicts early.
Right. These inner contradictions are basically relationship time bombs. For example, if you have a high aesthetic desire for peaceful harmony, but you also have a strong political need for control,
Uh-oh, I can see where this is going.
you're likely to create conflict in your pursuit of peace. You might try to control the environment so rigorously, the music has to be this volume, the lights have to be this dim, that you completely upset the very harmony you were seeking.
So knowing that ratio allows you to see your own self-sabotage mechanisms clearly.
It does. It's a bit of tough love from the data.
The third benefit is crucial for anyone who is single and listening. Choosing the right life partner.
This is a big one. Your ratio analysis reveals qualities that you subconsciously seek in a partner. Let's say your dominant ratio pits theoretical insight against regulatory structure. The analysis tells you whether you fundamentally value a partner who stimulates you intellectually, who challenges your ideas.
We're one who provides that unwavering, practical, day-to-day support.
Right. And it helps you move beyond just physical attraction or surface-level compatibility into what will sustain you long-term.
And the final benefit? Finding balance between career and marriage. Let's go back to that high economic, low altruistic example.
Okay, so if your internal ratio is heavily skewed towards maximizing financial results and efficiency, the analysis identifies your core deficiency, basically saying you're great at this, but you're weak at that.
So it suggests you need a partner who not only respects your ambition, but who inherently brings that missing altruistic balance. A partner who will force you to take breaks, who will remind you to prioritize emotional needs, who helps you see contribution as more than just a financial investment.
This is where that core compatibility insight really comes in. A successful marriage is rarely about finding someone identical to you.
It's about understanding your own blueprint, your strengths and your blind spots, and choosing someone who naturally respects those motivations and complements your weaknesses. Okay, let's get into the mechanics of this on page 10, because the source material says this is the predictive goldmine and we need to slow down and really detail it. The report highlights the top 8 ratios that can shape your decision-making.
Right. This deep synthesis is complex, but the source explains the calculation pretty simply. They take your top 4 drivers and they compare them in various ratios. So top 1 versus all the others combined, top 2 versus all the others, top 3 versus the lowest remaining driver. Plus, and this is a key one, they specifically compare your top 1 against your lowest 2 drivers.
And that process creates 8 distinct insights into your motivational hierarchy.
8 very powerful insights.
Okay, now for the critical interpretation part. The insights are categorized into 3 specific ratio ranges.
The first one is R1.5. This signifies high dominance. The first driver in the ratio completely overwhelms the second one. This indicates a very high level of clarity and focus, but it could also mean less flexibility or empathy in that value domain.
Then there's 1.2 or 1.5.
That's moderate dominance. So there's a clear leader, but the other driver still plays a significant internal role. This suggests there's a bit more internal debate before you make a decision.
And finally, 0R1.2.
This indicates balance. The 2 forces are almost equally weighted inside you. Now, while this might lead to some indecision at times, it also suggests a high degree of adaptability and the ability to see multiple sides of a situation.
And here's the most valuable part. For each of these ratios and for each of those 3 ranges, the report provides insights across 5 crucial relationship columns. Let's walk through a hypothetical case study to really bring this matrix to life for our listeners.
Great idea.
Let's imagine a listener, let's call her you, and your top driver is theoretical. So the pursuit of truth, knowledge, purpose. And your lowest driver is aesthetic, the need for harmony and physical beauty. And let's say your TA ratio is R equals to 4.0.
Okay, so that puts you firmly in the R1.5 high dominance range. Your theoretical driver is crushing your aesthetic one.
So let's analyze your profile across the 5 columns based on that high theoretical dominance.
Okay, column 1, personality adjective. The adjective for you might be something like rigidly analytical or intellectual perfectionist. This tells us that you are driven by the internal need for conceptual clarity above all else.
Okay. Column 2, clarity between heart and mind. For you, your mind rules your heart. Logic and verifiable fact are always going to trump emotional appeals or subjective feelings. It has a key insight for conflict resolution.
A massive one. Then we have column 3, relationship conflicts. Because of your low aesthetic and high theoretical dominance, the conflict column might warn you about something specific. It might say, friction will arise when emotional needs are prioritized over factual accuracy, or when time spent researching is seen as a waste of quality time by your partner.
Wow, that's incredibly specific and predictive. It means your partner needs to understand that for you, arguing based on feelings is just going to be less effective than arguing based on data and logic.
It's like giving them the cheat codes to communicating with you. Now, column 4. Right life partner. The report would likely suggest that you seek a partner who is emotionally stable and practical. You need someone who grounds you, who respects your intellectual intensity, but provides that emotional and aesthetic balance, that harmony that you naturally deprioritize.
And finally, column 5, lifestyle.
For you, this column might suggest a scholarly, goal-oriented, minimalist lifestyle. It predicts that you will prefer experiences that stimulate your mind over those that stimulate your senses, and you'll likely structure your finances around intellectual pursuits, not aesthetic indulgence.
You can really see the power in this. This level of analysis moves so far past simple compatibility questions and gives you a deep psychological profile of your internal operating system.
It does. And this is why spending time on the ratio analysis is so crucial. It maps your internal contradictions and gives you the tools to manage them proactively before they become major issues in a relationship.
Moving on to page 11, the report asks a very different kind of question. If ratio analysis was about your internal comparison, this section is all about external context, individual versus world mean. So how do you measure up against the general global population?
And this context is so vital because we live in the world, right? Not just inside our own heads. This comparison takes your motivational framework and puts it up against global norms using a Z-score graph.
A Z-score graph. So it shows how far you are from the average.
Exactly. And it reveals 3 key areas: where you align with society, where you might experience social conflict, and where you naturally complement others.
I can hear a listener asking, why does the world mean even matter if I'm only trying to find one partner?
It's a fair question, and it matters for 2 critical reasons. First, your partner is influenced by the world mean. Their family, their culture, their communication expectations, they often align with the norm. Second, your deviation from the mean predicts where you will experience friction in communication.
Not just with your spouse.
No, but with external pressures, with your in-laws, with society's general expectations of what a couple should be and how they should act.
The analysis focuses on 3 crucial behavioral dimensions where your score might deviate significantly from the norm. Let's tackle the first one, mindset.
So your mindset reveals your default intellectual approach. How do you process information, and how do you approach planning? A score that's significantly above the world mean in a driver like theoretical suggests a visionary or a highly conceptual mindset. You're always looking for the bigger principles before you act.
And if you score significantly below the mean in theoretical,
That might suggest a highly pragmatic, detached mindset. You care less about the why and more about the immediate practical what. Just tell me what needs to be done.
okay. The second dimension is values most. This captures your top intrinsic priority, the value that becomes the primary lens for all of your commitments.
Let's use the altruistic driver example again and compare you to the world mean. If your score is far above the world mean and altruistic, contribution and service become your dominant intrinsic priority. You will likely structure your commitment around giving, sacrifice, and community involvement.
And if your score is far below the mean,
Then that value is deprioritized. You might focus heavily on self-reliance, firm boundaries, and personal accountability. Now, while you're highly self-sufficient, a partner who's closer to the world mean might perceive this low score as a lack of empathy or an unwillingness to help.
when in reality it's just a motivational difference.
Exactly. It's not that you can't help, it's that you don't prioritize it instinctively. This gap between your score and the mean is where communication so often breaks down.
Let's discuss the third dimension, communication tactic. This seems huge for avoiding relationship friction. It shows your preferred style for conflict resolution and emotional connection.
This is where expectations really clash. If you are a high-scoring regulatory individual, your communication tactic is likely very structured and orderly. When you're in a conflict, you want to stick to the facts, follow a process, and resolve the issue methodically.
But if your partner is low in regulatory, their communication tactic is the exact opposite. It's free, spontaneous, and emotionally driven. They probably find your insistence on order during an argument to be stifling and cold.
Precisely. You're speaking 2 completely different motivational languages. The high regulatory person is trying to be efficient and fair. The low regulatory person thinks they're being detached and unfeeling. The Z-score graph helps you recognize this deviation so you can proactively adjust how you approach shared discussions and conflict.
Let's run one more full example using this C-score comparison. Let's imagine you, the listener, discover that your individualistic driver, that need for freedom and autonomy, is 2 standard deviations above the world mean. That is a huge deviation.
A very big deviation. So in terms of mindset, the report would probably classify you as an independent visionary or a free-willed innovator. You approach all planning with an extreme focus on personal space and freedom of action.
And what you value most would be absolute personal autonomy. This means that any relationship commitment that feels like a trap or a constraint or a loss of your self-identity will be highly, highly resisted or resented.
And finally, your communication tactic would likely be described as requires significant space and independence, resists emotional coercion or demands. The report is essentially warning your future partner. This individual needs alone time and independent action to recharge. Do not perceive their need for space as a rejection of you.
That comparison, your personal blueprint against the world's norm, is really the final piece of contextualizing your identity. It's not just about finding a match, but finding a sustainable harmony between your inner world and the outer world you're going to share as a couple.
That's a perfect way to summarize it.
Okay, we arrive at page 13, your key motivators descriptors. This section takes all the numbers and ratios we've been discussing and boils them down into a hierarchy of descriptive adjectives. This is a decoding of your unique value hierarchy.
This page focuses on the specific intensity you carry in your decision-making. It tells you exactly how you approach life's tasks by using simple yet really powerful adjectives. It's reflective of how you naturally handle problems, engage with people, manage your activity level, and define your structural requirements.
The report details specific score ranges, from 0-20, which is the lowest value, all the way up to 91-100, the highest value, for all 7 motivators. This is like the Rosetta Stone for understanding your default behavioral adjectives.
It is. Let's look at the high value range, that 91-100 score. These are your dominant defining traits. If you score extremely high in the political driver, the adjective describing you is likely controlling, dominating, or influential. If you are extremely high in economic, you are pragmatic and laser-focused on ROI.
So this reveals where your true behavioral passion lies.
It's your default setting.
I see the immediate utility here. If my report tells me I am controlling, I can no longer rationalize that behavior as simply being organized or leadership-oriented. The assessment calls it what it is, and that forces a real moment of self-awareness.
It does. It removes the ambiguity. Now look at the other end of the spectrum, the lower value scores in that 0-20 range. These are the traits that are subconsciously deprioritized, often because they stand in the way of your dominant drivers.
Let's take a look at that trade-off. If a listener is focused heavily on measurable results, so they have a high economic score, what kind of adjectives would fall into their low economic range?
That's a great question. In the 0-20 economic range, you might find adjectives like gratified, happy, and positive. This suggests that for you, satisfaction or contentment is not the primary measure of success. Your internal metric is achievement and profit, not just feeling good about the status quo.
That's a fascinating insight into motivation. The high-scoring economic individual might see contentment as a lack of drive, whereas the low-scoring economic individual sees contentment as the ultimate goal of all that work.
It's a fundamental difference in worldview. Here's another example. A low regulatory score, 0-20, includes adjectives like challenges, rules, and assertive. For this person, structure and order are not natural comfort zones. They prefer fluidity and freedom.
And you contrast this with someone high in regulatory who is defined by being organized and methodical. Their potential for conflict in a marriage is predetermined. It's baked right into their DNA.
It is. And the report also notes the importance of this counter-driver concept.
Yeah.
If you value work-life balance very highly, that could be a high aesthetic driver, for example, you may inherently exhibit a lower value for descriptors related to results and form, which is your economic or regulatory focus. You can't maximize both at the same time.
So this matrix is the final layer of understanding your behavioral tendencies under pressure. It moves beyond theoretical scores and gives you the specific defining adjectives you embody when you're pursuing a goal or meeting a need.
It's the ultimate decoding tool for understanding why you act the way you do in the pursuit of happiness and fulfillment. It's the what it looks like in real life page.
This has been an incredibly detailed journey. By going page by page through this report, you, our listener, now have the tools to understand your 7 core drivers, to interpret precisely where friction is likely to arise, to synthesize relational compatibility through that advanced ratio analysis, and to pinpoint your motivational intensity using the key motivator descriptors.
And the entire methodology, which is championed by IKSC Knowledge Bridge, Swayam Yog and Dr. Atul B. Patel, is designed not just to assess, but to empower. It's about providing young candidates with the deep self-knowledge necessary to make conscious, meaningful, and sustainable decisions as a couple. It really recognizes that compatibility isn't about similarity, it's about respectful complementarity.
So what does this all mean for your future? You have seen your motivational blueprint, you've seen your dominant and recessive drivers, and the precise friction points that they create. The key question you must ask now isn't simply who to marry. It's a much more complex and intentional one.
It is.
You have to ask yourself, having seen the scientific map of my psychological needs and limitations, what specific life compromises, emotional adjustments, and mutual goals am I truly committed to establishing with a partner, knowing exactly where my emotional friction points lie, and knowing exactly what sacrifices that level of commitment will demand?
That's the real work.
It is. The report is the first step toward self-knowledge. The conscious commitment to growth, to empathy, and to adjustment is your continuing investment in a lasting future.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cracking open a document that's really more of a navigational system.
A system for probably the biggest journey anyone takes, right?
Yep.
Finding a life partner.
Exactly. We are wading into the world of core motivations, of Relational benchmarking, we are decoding the Purpose Readiness Index.
And specifically, we're looking at a really critical part of it, the pre-marriage preparation test report. We're going to be focusing on pages 14 through 26.
And this is so much more than a checklist.
Oh, absolutely. Its core function is it's a sophisticated guide. It's designed to give you, the candidate, this really profound self-awareness about what drives you.
The why behind your choices.
The why, precisely. And critically, it's about establishing a detailed, intentional benchmark for the ideal life partner who will, complement that design.
So our mission today is to give you a roadmap. For you listening, we want to make sure you understand the structure, the content, and really the practical application of this whole thing.
It's all about moving beyond that surface level stuff.
Right. Attraction, hobbies, career. All that is important. But this goes deeper into what we could call motivational harmonization. This report is basically a shortcut to entering a partnership with unparalleled clarity.
And we should probably give some context here. This is a valuable tool, and the data is all dynamic. It's generated for young individuals who actually take this test.
As part of their preparation for finding a life partner.
Yes, and these specialized pre-marriage preparation assessments, they're conducted by Dr. Atul B. Patel at IKSC Knowledge Bridge, Swayam Yog.
And that intent behind it, that positive, proactive work from IKSC is what I think makes this so compelling. They're making a real effort to help candidates, to help you discover yourself first.
Your innate strengths, your vulnerabilities, what you absolutely need from a motivational standpoint.
Before you even start the search, this assessment gives you the candidate, the map, the compass, and I guess the psychological vocabulary you need for success.
Exactly. The goal, as the organization says, is to move beyond that fleeting emotional attraction and provide objective data. If you understand your own drivers, you can articulate your deepest needs.
With precision, to a prospective partner, and build a foundation on shared values.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this blueprint. We're going page by page, walking you through the report's structure. We'll spend a good amount of time on the 7 drivers of motivation.
Then we'll look at how the report suggests adapting those motivations for a partnership.
Then we'll dissect the partner expectations, the benchmark, and finally, we get to the really practical part, how the report turns all this insight into actual, actionable dialogue questions.
Right, let's jump in. We'll start the deep dive into the self-profile, right there on page 14. That's where your analysis, the candidate's analysis, begins with the first of the 7 core drivers.
Okay, so this first big section, pages 14 through 20, this is really the heart of the self-discovery piece. We're looking at your specific results across what they call the 7 workplace drivers, or 7 WPB.
And the structure for each page is, it's designed to be really comprehensive. It doesn't matter if a driver is high or low for you. The analysis is always there.
And it's standardized, right? There are 5 key subsections for every single drive.
Yes. You've got the executive summary, general traits and key strengths, motivational insights, training learning insights, and then the continual improvement insights.
We probably don't need to list all 5 every single time, but understanding how they fit together is, it's key.
It is. The executive summary tells you what your score is. The motivational insights explain why that matters. And the continual improvement part guides you on how to manage potential issues, especially in a partnership.
All right, let's start with page 14. We encounter the aesthetic drive. Now, this one is easily misinterpreted.
Very easily. It's not just a score on whether you like art museums.
Right. At its core, this drive is the deep, fundamental need for balance, for harmony, for finding some kind of form or beauty in life, in your relationships, in your environment.
Exactly. So for you, the candidate, if you have a high aesthetic drive, it means you prioritize the experience, the form, the mutual respect in your interactions.
So the key words here are things like harmony, balance, form over function.
Creativity, self-fulfillment. This is also where environmental concerns, green initiatives often come from.
The implication for just your daily life is huge. If your motivational insights show a high aesthetic drive, you're genuinely energized when your home or your workspace, or even just the structure of a conversation is harmonious.
And clutter causes you real internal stress.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And this is where you see that form versus function conflict play out in relationships. For a high aesthetic candidate, a practical solution that's ugly or just disruptive to the harmony is deeply unsatisfying.
So if their partner is, say, highly economic, they might buy the cheapest, most functional couch for the house.
And the aesthetic candidate is just internally recoiling because it completely lacks balance or beauty. It throws off the whole room.
The continual improvement insights on this page are interesting. They often talk about balancing that sense of harmony with objectivity.
Yes, because if you're too driven by that need for form, the report helps you see that you might overlook, necessary, simple, maybe less beautiful practical things that just need to get done.
Even if it's not elegant.
Right. And the partnership conflict here is critical. If your aesthetic drive as the candidate is high, you need a partner who gets that creating a balanced, respectful home isn't a luxury. It's a core requirement for your well-being.
And if the partner just dismisses that, disregards the visual environment.
The aesthetic candidate will feel a genuine psychological drain. It's not trivial.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move it to page 15, the economic drive.
Right, the internal calculator. The core essence here is motivation for security, for bottom line results, and for practical returns. This drive is your internal ROI mechanism.
It's focused on maximizing efficiency in gains.
Relentlessly. And the key insight, it isn't just about money, though that's part of it. It's about a scarcity mindset with all resources.
Time, effort, energy.
All of it. The key words are practical returns, efficiency, utility, maximizing gains, production. For a candidate who's high in this, wasting time feels almost like a moral failing.
So if you, the candidate, score high here, your general trait section is going to highlight efficiency and accountability.
Yeah.
You see time as money.
And you prioritize utility in basically every decision. Your motivational insights would show that you're energized by visible results and by minimizing waste.
And this has a direct line to major partnership decisions, right? Shared finances, investments, even just managing the household.
Absolutely. A highly economic candidate might calculate the most efficient route for weekend errands, and a 15-minute detour to see something beautiful which would appeal to a high aesthetic motivation.
Is not just inefficient to them, it actually causes them internal stress because they see that time as a lost resource, a wasted asset.
Exactly. And the continual improvement insights for a high scorer often advise balancing that pragmatic approach with experiences that don't have a clear monetary return.
Like learning to invest in leisure or relationships, just for the emotional benefit, without needing a quantifiable ROI.
The report is basically the keywords really define the boundary of the self. Unique, independent, autonomous, free, relevant, sovereign, self-governed. This is the candidate who really cherishes their personal space, their own decision-making power, and the right to define their own path.
So here's the obvious question. How does this work in a marriage? If a candidate scores really high here, the report is basically saying they value independence over interdependence. How do they approach the compromises of marriage without feeling like they're sacrificing their core self?
Well, the report stresses awareness. The motivational insights will confirm that you, the candidate, thrive when you're given that intellectual and physical freedom.
Right.
But the continual improvement section will acknowledge that extreme individualism can erode collaboration. The challenge becomes learning to see interdependence not as a loss of freedom, but as a freely chosen commitment that enhances the shared life.
Without diminishing the self.
Without diminishing the self. And you can see the daily friction. The high individualist needs to be able to close a door and have that space respected without a long explanation.
Their ideal partner needs to get that autonomy isn't a rejection of the relationship.
It's a fuel source for them. The conflict comes when a partner, maybe one who's highly altruistic or regulatory, insists on constant teamwork or joint decisions on every little thing.
And what about their learning style?
The training learning insight for them often emphasizes self-paced experiential methods. They learn best by doing it themselves, by discovering it on their own. It reinforces their feeling of competence and sovereignty.
So if a partner tries to micromanage how they learn something new or how they make a decision.
The individualistic candidate will often see that as a direct attack on their relevance. The report is helping the candidate see that potential conflict coming from a mile away.
Right. Okay, next up, page 17, the political drive.
So this drive is about external dominance, influence, and control. The core of this motivation is the drive to be a leader, to influence your environment, or to control outcomes. It's often associated with competitiveness and seeking status.
And we have to get past the idea of, government politics here. This is about personal leadership and agency.
Yes. The candidate's motivational insights will tell them if they're energized by being in charge, by managing resources, or simply having a big impact on their immediate world.
Whether that's a team at work or the family unit at home.
Exactly. The key words are power, control, influential, governing, leadership, status and esteem, and accountable. The report's role is to clarify how you, the candidate, seek to lead or influence your partner and your shared life.
Is that control obvious and structured, or is it more subtle through persuasion?
That's the question. If the candidate scores high, their general traits will probably include being proactive, taking initiative, confidently shouldering responsibility. Their strengths are in execution and accountability.
They're the ones who step up and make sure the job gets done.
Right. And this is where you can see major friction points in a partnership emerge. Imagine a high political candidate and a low political partner planning a big home renovation.
The political candidate will naturally create the plan, assign the tasks, set the deadlines.
Because that is their motivational requirement, to govern the situation and ensure success. But the lower scoring partner might feel like they're being bossed around, even if the political partner is just acting on their core drive for order and outcomes.
So what does the continual improvement section say for a high political candidate?
It might warn about overreach. If that desire for control becomes too dominant, it can stifle a partner's input or create unnecessary power struggles. The candidate has to ask themselves, am I seeking influence for a positive impact, or am I just seeking status for my own validation?
And the report helps you separate those two motives. That's powerful.
It is.
Let's turn to page 18, the altruistic drive.
This is the expression of that deep need to benefit others. It's characterized by a sincerity in giving time, resources, energy, often in humanitarian service.
The key words are what you'd expect: support of others, compassion, helping society, selflessness, generosity. And this drive is huge because it determines how much of your personal resources, your time, your money, your emotional energy, you're willing to give to people outside the immediate relationship.
Wait, I have to pause on this one because this page has a really profound psychological pivot that is just essential for a healthy marriage.
Okay.
The report raises this vital internal question. Does the candidate give to anyone who needs it, or only to those who they believe deserve it, based on some personal metric?
The distinction between boundless compassion and selective compassion.
It's absolutely vital for setting personal boundaries. That's where the analysis goes beyond just the behavior and gets to the core insecurity. A highly altruistic candidate's motivational insights will show they feel energized by supporting a cause.
But if that drive is too dominant,
the continual improvement section will often address the risk of being spread too thin, or worse, sacrificing their own needs or the needs of their spouse and family for external causes.
so the report helps the candidate ask themselves, do I feel overwhelmed because I just can't say no?
And it hints at those dialogue questions we'll get to later, like, do you feel like you need to do things for others to feel valuable or loved?
Wow. If that need for external validation is what's driving the giving, the partnership's foundation could be really vulnerable.
The candidate has to know their own limits so they don't end up resenting their partner for not meeting a need that they're constantly trying to fulfill somewhere else.
That's a critical insight. Okay, on to page 19, the regulatory drive.
This is the motivation to establish order, routine, and structure. It's fundamentally driven by rules, policies, and a traditional approach to security and predictability.
The core value here is predictability. For these candidates, they feel safe when things are systemic, governed, orderly, traditional, regulated. Chaos isn't just annoying. It actively creates anxiety for a highly regulatory candidate.
And their general traits will often include being reliable, meticulous, having strong attention to detail. Their key strengths are in implementing processes and ensuring compliance. For this candidate, order is peace.
And linking that preference for structure to how they learn is valuable too. The training learning insight for them would probably favor traditional, step-by-step methods, manuals, proven structures.
Which tells you exactly how they prefer information to be presented in a discussion, logically, without any sudden detours.
The deep nuance for a partnership then revolves around flexibility.
Completely. The report encourages the candidate to look at their own preference. Do you always prefer the tried and true approach over being flexible? If your motivation is to be right and stick to the rules, the continual improvement section might urge you to practice situational flexibility.
And tolerance for the messiness of life.
Exactly. I mean, think about a regulatory candidate planning a vacation versus a highly individualistic one.
Oh, I could see that coming.
The regulatory candidate needs a detailed itinerary, checked bags, everything on schedule to feel secure. The individualistic candidate needs spontaneity, freedom from a schedule. The report highlights this exact friction point.
It urges the candidate to understand where their deep need for structure might clash with a partner's need for flow.
And to learn that a deviation from the plan isn't a moral failure, it's just a different drive in operation.
Okay, finally, page 20, the theoretical drive.
This is the drive to understand, to gain knowledge, to discover the underlying truth. This candidate prioritizes rational thinking, reasoning, and sophisticated problem solving above everything else.
This is the intellectual power drive. The key words are rational, fact-based, intellectual power, learning, analyzing, clarifying. For this candidate, knowledge isn't just a tool, it's the main motivator. It's their source of security.
So for a high theoretical candidate, their motivational insights will show they are energized by complex problems, by research, by having all the details and perspectives before they make any decision.
Their strengths are in analytical, rigor, clarity, and solving problems based on deep, researched understanding.
But the big question the report helps answer is the contrast between analysis and action. For the theoretical candidate, knowledge is the absolute prerequisite for any action. They have to understand the why before they can move to the how.
Which can lead to the classic analysis paralysis.
It can, and that can clash severely with, say, a highly economical political partner who wants to see rapid action and results, not exhaustive analysis.
Right.
Also, the high theoretical candidate often seeks out debate just for the intellectual rigor of it. They love testing ideas. Their partner needs to understand that this debate isn't a personal attack or a challenge to their status.
It's just a motivational need for them to achieve clarity.
And so the continual improvement section for them is key. It encourages them to move from perpetual research mode to actually implementing solutions with the knowledge they already have. The candidate has to realize that at some point, the search for absolute knowledge has to give way to the need for decisive action in a relationship.
So by the time you, the candidate, get to the end of page 20, you have this incredibly deep, structured profile of your core self. Your motivational compass is fully charted.
And that self-awareness is the foundation for everything that comes next, defining the partner you truly need.
So we've mapped out these 7 dimensions, each one analyzed in detail. Page 21 really acts as the synthesis, pulling all those threads together into one cohesive picture.
Yeah, this summary page just quickly reiterates the core motivational intent for each one. So aesthetic equals harmony, economic is security and utility, individualistic is freedom.
Political is influence, altruistic is service, regulatory is structure, and theoretical is knowledge.
And that self-reflection connection is so important because the candidate needs to see that it's the collective pattern, how high or low they score on each drive compared to the others, that forms their unique blueprint.
It's the recipe, not just one ingredient.
Exactly. It's the unique combination of these drives that really dictates your behavior and your needs, not just one isolated high score. This overview then prepares you, the candidate, for the next big pivot.
Which is accepting that this blueprint is your default setting, and realizing that a partnership means learning to adapt to a partner's completely different system.
Which brings us to page 22, Motivators Adaptability. And the report is very direct here. It says that adapting to another person's motivational preference can be quite difficult.
And why is that?
Well, because motivations are internal. They aren't always easy to see, and they can often be disguised in behaviors that seem to contradict them.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. A partner might spend a lot of time volunteering, which looks altruistic on the surface, but if their core driver is actually political, they might be doing it because it raises their status or influence in the community. The observed behavior doesn't match the internal motivation.
I see. So the report gives you practical, observational ways to discover this in a potential partner.
Yes, for you, the candidate, to truly understand someone else's motivators, you have to diligently observe 3 key areas.
Okay, where are they?
First, pay attention to what they value. Where do they put their energy, their emotional emphasis? Second, observe the way they speak. Are they talking in terms of efficiency, which is economic, or fairness, which is altruistic or regulatory, or logic, which is theoretical?
And the third.
And third, see where they spend their time and attention or other resources.
Let's use an example from the source to really illustrate this. If you're watching a potential partner make decisions, and they always choose the most expensive, but also the most respected brand of car or clothing.
That suggests a high economy. Political drive status and esteem is overriding a high economic drive, which would be about utility. You've just used that resource allocation observation to see what's really going on.
Or looking at the way they speak. If their conversation is full of phrases like, "that's not the protocol," or "we have to follow the sequence."
They are signaling a high regulatory drive, even if they might seem relaxed in a more spontaneous situation.
So the report then gives you guiding questions to move from just observing to actually having a dialogue. The goal is to validate what you think you're seeing.
Exactly. For instance, there's a specific altruistic example. Do you feel like you need to do things for others to be valuable or loved?
That's a very deep and personal question.
It is, because it aims right at the root psychological need. If the partner says yes, then you, the candidate, know that managing their boundaries is going to have to be a crucial joint effort in the relationship.
What about the individualistic example? What does freedom mean to you? That seems simple, but it's not.
It's incredibly nuanced. For a high economic partner, freedom might mean being debt-free. For a high individualistic partner, it means having the sovereign right to make your own schedule, clarifying that one definition can prevent so much future friction.
And the regulatory one, is there a right way and a wrong way, or many ways to accomplish something?
If that prospective partner insists there is only one right way, a classic high regulatory response, immediately that flexibility is going to require deliberate effort and conversation in the partnership.
So the big takeaway, the so what on this page, is that knowing your partner's motivators lets you interact with them more effectively.
You can tailor your communication, your actions to meet their core needs. It leads to mutual growth instead of conflict that's just rooted in misunderstanding. It's like having a translation guide for your relationship.
Okay, so now we get to page 23, which is a major transition. We're moving from self-discovery into what the report calls the Bandan process.
Yes, this is where you, the candidate, stop focusing only on your own profile and you start defining the qualities of your ideal partner. You start creating the benchmark.
The sequence here is just brilliant. The report explains that first, you explored your own motivators, the 7WPD, and your natural behavior, which is the DISC profile.
And we should probably clarify that. The DISC is about the external how we act. Are we fast-paced, reflective, reserved, outspoken?
Whereas the 7WPD is the internal why we are motivated.
Correct. The key is that you then repeat the entire assessment, but this time from the perspective of your ideal partner. That second step is what creates the benchmark. It's a reflection of the qualities you're actively seeking to complement and harmonize with your own profile.
And why does this matter so much for marriage?
Because a lasting partnership depends not just on being similar, but on harmonization.
What's the difference?
Harmonization means your differences create balance. The candidate is forced to be intentional about what kind of partner helps them feel safe, valued, and inspired.
So, for example, if you're incredibly spontaneous and flexible, meaning you have a low regulatory score, you might realize you need to find someone with a moderate to high regulatory drive to bring some structure and stability to your life.
Exactly. The report is helping you recognize where you need a counterbalance to make sure practical things get done in your shared life.
This whole process prepares the candidate for open conversations that are grounded in objective data, not just feelings.
It stops you from falling into that common trap of marrying a mirror image of yourself, which often just means you share the same weaknesses and blind spots.
So how does the candidate actually read this benchmark? The report details the preferences across both of those key areas. First, the motivational compass, the 7WPD.
Right, which shows what they hope their partner will value, whether that's stability, influence, service, or knowledge.
And second, the behavioral blueprint, the DISC.
Yes. The candidate is profiling not just their partner's values, but their style. Do they need someone calm when they are intense, someone analytical when they are action-oriented? This intentional design ensures you're looking for the right blend of personality and motivation.
And the report is very careful about what it calls the promise. It specifically says this is not a judgment tool or a rigid checklist.
No, it's about creating clarity, encouraging honest conversations, and highlighting two specific outcomes where natural ease will exist, which is where you have shared high drives.
And where gentle adjustments may be required, where your drives are complementary but different.
That phrase, gentle adjustments, is so important. The core principle is finding someone who is complementary and committed to growing together. The report manages your expectations by making sure you, the candidate, understand you're looking for a partner who fills your gaps, not a clone who just reinforces your existing patterns.
So if the candidate is highly theoretical and they're seeking a regulatory partner for structure, they have to accept that the gentle adjustment is letting that partner implement structure.
even if the theoretical candidate feels like they haven't finished the research phase yet.
This benchmark gives you foresight.
It does. It equips the candidate with the knowledge of where potential conflict lies, so they can address it proactively with dialogue rather than reactively through emotion, which is what happens when those underlying motivations clash unexpectedly.
Which leads us to page 24, highlights on the profile. This is where it all becomes visual.
Yes, this section has a comparative bar chart. It presents the 7 workplace drivers side by side for the candidate, who is self, and the ideal partner.
That visualization has to be so helpful for the candidate. It immediately translates that abstract benchmark into something tangible by showing the gap between your own drivers and the traits you're intentionally seeking in a partner.
It's your partner's key life motivators, laid bare.
A visual summary.
Exactly. It captures the desired characteristics of the ideal partner for all 7 motivators. This is really the ultimate guide for proactively interviewing a potential partner. It gives you a detailed hypothesis to go and test in the real world.
And the report explicitly lists the benefits of understanding this ideal profile. It helps you recognize emotional compatibility, predict stress points,
Build mutual understanding, and celebrate each other's strengths.
Let's focus on predicting conflict, because that seems like the most valuable takeaway here.
It really is. If the candidate knows their ideal partner is highly individualistic, they can predict that trying to micromanage their time or force joint activities will be a major stressor. That foresight lets the candidate adjust their approach before a conflict even starts.
Or, what about a candidate who is highly altruistic, but they're seeking a partner who's highly economic?
That's a great example. The altruistic candidate will see the economic partner as providing necessary security and grounding. But the altruistic candidate has to understand that their economic partner is going to demand detailed budgets and may struggle to authorize large, spontaneous, charitable donations.
Because that goes against their core drive for security and practical returns.
Right. And the report helps the candidate approach these differences not as flaws, but as predictable, necessary, balancing forces in the relationship.
This is the application phase. We're on page 26, where the report moves from self-analysis to real-world action. We're looking at how to frame the inferences into questions.
Right. And the goal here isn't to conduct an interrogation. It's to verify the assumptions you started making back on page 22.
It's moving from, I observe you spend time volunteering, to actually asking, is this really what drives you? Or do I understand your core need correctly?
That validation is the cornerstone of building an intentional relationship.
What really shows the sophistication of the Purpose Readiness Index is that these questions aren't generic. They're dynamically generated.
Yes, they're customized based on your profile, your ideal partner's profile, and even factors like gender. These aren't just from a list. They are surgical conversation starters designed specifically for you, the candidate.
The report gives you a clear, structured list of questions for all 7 drivers. And here's the crucial detail. It provides 10 customized, high-value questions per driver.
That is 70 highly specific compatibility probes for you to use when you're interacting with a prospective partner.
Let's maybe try to generate a few examples to show how deep these questions go. Let's start with the economic drive. If the candidate needs a partner who balances security with some risk, what would a question sound like?
Okay, it might be something like, if we had an unexpected financial windfall, would your first instinct be to pay off all debt immediately or to invest a portion aggressively for long-term growth? How do you define reasonable financial risk?
Wow, okay. That immediately tests their fundamental approach to stability versus maximizing gains. Let's try the regulatory drive, since order and structure are so important to a high regulatory person.
A question could be, how comfortable are you deviating from a set family or vacation plan when an unexpected, potentially exciting opportunity comes up? When does the benefit of spontaneity outweigh the security of the schedule?
That directly probes their flexibility and their need for predictability.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the individualistic drive? If you, the candidate, need a partner who respects autonomy.
The generated question might be something like, in a committed partnership, what specific time, resources, or decisions must always remain solely autonomous for you to feel respected and free?
That forces the prospective partner to articulate their boundary needs right up front. One more, the political drive. If you're looking for a partner to share leadership with.
The question could be, when managing a major shared life decision like moving or changing jobs, do you prefer to delegate all responsibility to one person, or do you prefer shared control and input at every stage, even if it slows down the process.
That clarifies their preferred decision-making hierarchy instantly.
This whole section just transforms the pre-marriage discussion. You are equipped to ask pointed, meaningful questions about core values and motivational triggers. It ensures the decision is built on a foundation of mutual, deep understanding.
It's proactive compatibility scouting.
At its finest.
And so we arrive at the final reflective statement of the report, which is this powerful summary that brings us full circle. The journey within before the journey together.
This final thought just perfectly encapsulates the mission that Dr. Patil and IKSC Knowledge Bridge, Swinug, have established. True, lasting compatibility, especially in a marriage, must start with rigorous self-discovery.
Knowing your own 7-WPD and DISC profile is the non-negotiable first step.
The report is basically saying you cannot successfully navigate a partnership until you understand your own navigational system, your own motivations, needs, and limits. Only then can you accurately define and identify a partner who complements you.
It shifts the focus for you, the candidate, from the passive hope of finding the right person to the active process of being the right person.
One who understands their needs well enough to articulate them constructively and to seek a partner who complements those needs deliberately. It's preparation for a lifelong commitment, not just a test of attraction.
So let's do a quick recap of this deep dive into the Purpose Readiness Index. We've established that the report defines your 7 core values, from aesthetic harmony to theoretical knowledge, and it predicts exactly where you, the candidate, find your motivation.
And where your core friction points are likely to be. Crucially, that self-analysis then becomes the foundation for building an intentional, balanced profile for an ideal life partner through that band-in process.
It equips you with a benchmark that moves far beyond fleeting attraction to harmonize deeply held long-term values.
And the ultimate value for you is that this report is a sophisticated, customized tool for focused dialogue. Those 70 customized compatibility questions make sure that partnership decisions are built on harmonized values and intentional, gentle adjustments.
You're just so much more prepared for the journey ahead.
The effort by IKSC to provide this guidance is really focused on long-term relationship success. It gives you, the candidate, the psychological vocabulary you need to understand and communicate your deepest needs effectively.
All right, now for our final provocative thought for you to chew on. If you already know your own motivational profile so thoroughly, which drives are high, which are low, where's the most surprising area of deliberate difference you might seek in a partner?
That's a good one. If you're highly theoretical, would you intentionally seek a highly economic partner just to make sure things actually get done?
And if you find that complementarity, that deliberate difference, how much flexibility are you truly willing to sacrifice from your own core drives to achieve that ideal, functional balance in the marriage?
Think about the high individualistic candidate seeking the high altruistic partner. They gain that service and connection, but the price is a deliberate adjustment to their most prized possession, their autonomy.
A worthwhile question for anyone considering a journey together. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.